What if your silence was never weakness, but wisdom waiting to speak? Today's video is not advice, it's a reflection of your own soul through the eyes of Athena. A mirror for the woman who has mastered the art of disappearing, not because she wanted to, but because no one ever taught her that her no was sacred. You've tolerated the intolerable, and today, the goddess in you remembers what you once buried to belong. Let's begin there. The invisible silence, when your no is repeatedly ignored. You didn't start your life invisible. You were vivid, instinctual, present. But somewhere along the way, someone flinched at your clarity. Someone mocked your fire. Someone withdrew their love the moment you stopped being convenient. So you learned that saying no wasn't safe, that being too honest made people uncomfortable, that boundaries came with punishment. You didn't choose silence. Silence was chosen for you. Through every side eye, every cold shoulder, every withdrawal of warmth when you dared to say, "This doesn't feel right." And so you shrunk. You learned to filter your truth through politeness. You whispered needs like secrets, as if they were sins. You learned how to disappear without leaving the room. Now you sit across from people who call you easygoing, but they don't know the cost of that calm. They don't know how many no's you've swallowed whole just to keep the peace. They don't know that the calmest women often carry the loudest ache. Psychological root, the freeze response of the feminine soul. According to trauma researchers, when safety is denied repeatedly, the body doesn't just react, it adapts, it fawns, it freezes, especially in women who were never allowed to be fully themselves without consequence. This isn't weakness. It's wisdom misdirected. The nervous system, in its loyalty to survival, learned that not reacting was safer than being honest, that silence would keep you loved, or at least tolerated. So now, when your no is ignored, you freeze. Not because you agree, but because somewhere deep inside, you still believe that love is earned through your disappearance. When no one listens, your spirit stops speaking. The inner goddess doesn't scream. She doesn't demand attention. She speaks in sensations, in chills, in exhaustion, in the quiet ache that lingers after conversations where you abandoned yourself again. And when you don't listen, she begins to retreat. She dims the light in your eyes. She clouds the sound of your intuition. She stops sending signs. Not because she's punishing you, but because she knows you're not ready to hear what you already know. That's the true cost of tolerating what you know violates your truth. You lose the one voice you were born to trust, your own. Imagine a wildflower growing on untouched land. It blooms not because someone told it to, but because it was allowed to. Now imagine hands that pluck it, replant it, shape it, cut it. It may still bloom, for a while, but eventually it begins to wilt, not from lack of love, but from lack of respect. You are that flower, and every time someone trespasses your sacred space without asking, you lose a little more of your bloom. Ritual of reconnection, the mantra of sacred boundaries. Sit in silence, place your hands on your heart, and ask yourself, what are the 3 boundaries that were crossed so many times you stopped believing they were worth protecting? Write them down, but not as a list, as sacred truths. Examples: I have the right to speak without being interrupted. I deserve peace when I'm overwhelmed. I am not available to be gaslighted out of my truth. Now go to a mirror. Look deeply into your own eyes, not with judgment, but with reverence. Repeat these boundaries aloud, not as questions, not as apologies, but as declarations of divinity. Say them as if Athena herself is listening, because she is, and she lives inside you. Energetic gaslighting, when they make you doubt your vibe. It's not always the words. Sometimes it's the coldness in a glance, the micro shift in tone, the subtle change in energy when you walk into the room. You feel it instantly. Your chest tightens, your intuition flares. Something in your body says, something here is off. But when you try to name it, they laugh. They dismiss. They call you too sensitive, too emotional, too dramatic. And little by little, you stop trusting the only compass that never lied to you, your own vibration, the unseen pain. Maybe it's just me. You begin to question what you feel. You replay conversations. You edit your truth. You try to be more rational, more neutral, more spiritual. But here's the paradox. In trying to be reasonable, you become disconnected. Energetic gaslighting doesn't just silence your words, it silences your frequency. And when you disconnect from your frequency, you disconnect from your soul's GPS. Sacred science. The body feels before the mind understands. Studies on mirror neurons and biofield perception reveal this truth. The human body picks up subtle emotional shifts even before the mind can make sense of them. This is not magic, it's sacred biology. Your skin feels it, your gut contracts, your heart shifts rhythm. Before any logic can interfere, your body already knows. But women are taught to override that knowing, to smile when it feels wrong, to stay when the energy says, go, to trust politeness more than their pulse. That's not sensitivity, that's wisdom unclaimed. Doubting your vibe is surrendering your sovereignty. Every time you ask someone, did I imagine this? You hand them the key to your temple. You make them the gatekeeper of your intuition. And that is how we lose ourselves while still seeming awake. The awakened woman doesn't seek permission to feel. She listens, she trusts, she acts not in panic, but in alignment. Sensitivity is not fragility. It is the most refined intelligence of the feminine field. Imagine a bird that feels the wind shift before the storm even touches the trees. It wants to fly, to seek shelter, to move. But every time it spreads its wings, someone says, "Why are you leaving? The sky is clear." So the bird stays. Not because it doesn't feel the storm, but because it no longer trusts its wings. And when the storm finally hits, she's not ready. Not because she couldn't have been, but because she wasn't allowed to believe in her flight. Vibration awareness practice. What has my body already understood that my mind is still denying? Close your eyes, place both hands over your heart, feel your breath, slow, low, intentional. Now ask yourself, what has my body already understood that my mind is still denying? Don't answer with logic, answer with sensation. Is there tension? Is there contraction? Is there stillness? Let that be your teacher. Then ask, do I truly want to stay in this vibration? Or is my presence here a form of self-abandonment? You don't need to explain your knowing. You only need to honor it. Kindness as currency, when you're only loved if you're useful. They praised her for being helpful, for anticipating needs, for always being available, for never making things about her. They called her selfless, but what they really meant was, you're easier to love when you don't ask for anything. So she gave, she soothed, she fixed, she softened her own needs until they evaporated, because that's what made her lovable. And without realizing, her kindness became a currency, a transaction for affection, a quiet deal.
If I stay useful, maybe I'll stay wanted. The hidden wound. Conditional love feels like worth until it doesn't. She learns to offer care like it's air, but only to others. Her own breath becomes optional. When she stops giving, the silence is loud. The calls stop. The messages dry up. The smiles fade. She begins to realize they loved my presence only when it solved their problems. And so she gives more. She becomes more positive, more available, more spiritual. Not from love, but from fear. The fear of being forgotten once she's no longer useful. The medicinal woman complex. Psychologist Carol Gilligan revealed a painful truth. Many women have been conditioned to define their worth through service. Their value is tied to how well they care, fix, comfort, rescue. It begins in childhood, praised for being mature, for helping out, for not causing trouble. Later, it's spiritualized. You're so giving. You have such a big heart. You're always there for everyone. And behind those compliments is a cage. Because the woman who is only seen when she's saving others eventually forgets how to save herself. Soul awakening. The love that demands your disappearance is not love. Let this truth sting if it must. If they only embrace you when you're serving, it is not love. It's emotional capitalism wearing the mask of connection. Love does not ask you to disappear to be worthy. Love does not resent your rest. Love does not expect you to bleed just to feel needed. Athena whispers, "A goddess does not give from emptiness. She offers what overflows, not what costs her peace." Metaphor of the withering fountain. She was a fountain, pure, flowing, generous. Everyone drank from her waters. They thanked her, praised her, relied on her. But no one noticed she never drank her own water. She poured and poured and poured, until one day she turned to stone. Dry, cold, silent. Not because she lacked love, but because she forgot she deserved to receive it too. Healing ritual. Receiving without earning. Choose one moment today to receive without offering anything in return. Let someone compliment you and say thank you without deflecting. Let someone help you without rushing to justify it. Let someone love you without explaining why you deserve it. If discomfort arises, breathe. That discomfort is detox. It's the breaking of the spell that said, you must earn love.
Repeat internally. I do not need to prove my worth through sacrifice. I receive because I exist. Because true abundance begins the moment you stop apologizing for your needs. Sacred rage denied. How you were taught to smile through violations. How many times have you smiled when your soul was screaming? How often have you said, "It's okay," when every cell in your body was begging you to speak the truth? You've done it in meetings, in family dinners, in relationships that looked peaceful on the outside, but inside felt like slow suffocation. Because you were taught that a good woman doesn't rage. She endures. She forgives. She breathes through the violation and keeps smiling. But here's what no one told you. The rage you repress becomes the illness you carry. Repressed anger and the silent body. Dr. Gabor Mate, in his studies of emotional trauma, shows a chilling pattern. People who suppress their anger over long periods are more likely to develop autoimmune illnesses. Why? Because your body holds what your voice won't express. Every time you say, "I'm fine," when you're not, your cells record it. Every time you minimize a boundary violation, your immune system tightens.
Every time you smile through pain to avoid confrontation, your nervous system codes that silence as safety, even as it begins to break you from the inside. This isn't just emotion, it's physiology. And your body is tired of holding the rage that your words never could. Transformational truth. Rage is a compass, not a curse. There is a kind of rage that does not destroy. It reveals. It doesn't scream for revenge, it demands recognition. It ignites not because you hate, but because something sacred within you has been dishonored and can no longer remain silent. This rage is not chaos, it is coherence. It is the part of you that still remembers, I am worthy of protection. I am allowed to be whole. I do not need to be palatable to be divine. The volcano that never erupts. Picture a volcano that's been told its fire is too much. It trembles underground. Its lava rises, recedes, simmers, but it never erupts. Because someone once said, don't make a scene. Don't be dramatic. Just let it go. So it holds the heat until the pressure cracks its foundation, not from fury, but from the unbearable weight of suppression. You were never meant to hold it all in. You are meant to move it. Ritual, the sacred scream. Express without harm, liberate without guilt. This week, give your rage a place to breathe, a place to move, a place to be honored as wisdom, not weakness. Here's how. Write a letter to the one who violated your trust. Say what you never said. Uncensored, unfiltered, unapologetic. Scream into a pillow. Cry in your car. Punch the bed with closed fists. Move your body wildly. Let it tremble, shake, roar. Then, burn the paper. Blow the ashes into the wind and say aloud, this fire does not destroy me, it cleanses what no longer belongs. Soul whisper. The goddess in you is not polite. She is sacred. She is fierce. She is made of storm and stillness. And your rage? It's not the problem. It's the messenger. Listen to her. Shrinking to fit, the unseen cost of making others comfortable. You're so easy to be around. You never make a fuss. You're not like the others. At first, it sounds like a compliment, but deep down, it stings. Because what they're really saying is, you don't take up space. You don't challenge us. You don't inconvenience us with your truth. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to shrink to fit. You adjust your tone. You censor your passion. You smile even when you feel like crying, all to avoid being too much. The quiet ache, the praise that feels like disappearance. They applaud you for being peaceful, but they never notice how much of yourself you hide to be pleasant. They like your calm, but they don't know the storm you've silenced inside just to keep the peace. Because when a woman shrinks herself enough times, she begins to forget how to stretch. She forgets what her voice sounds like when it's not edited. She forgets how her soul moves when it's not filtered. She forgets what it feels like to take up her full space without apology. The body that learns to disappear. Studies in somatic psychology reveal that women raised in emotionally repressive environments often develop a body posture of safety, a physical language that says, I won't disturb you, I won't confront you, I won't be a threat.
You see it in the slouched shoulders, the hesitant tone, the legs crossed too tightly, the breath held just a second too long. It's not just emotional, it's cellular. The body learns containment. The nervous system associates visibility with danger, so she stays small. Thinking smallness means safety, when in truth, it's just prolonged invisibility. Truth activation. The world doesn't need another quiet woman. It needs a whole one. You weren't born to be manageable. You were born to be magnetic. And your bigness is not a burden. It's a blessing they never learned how to hold. Every time you shrink to protect someone's comfort, you rob the world of your radiance. Let them feel discomfort. Let them adjust. Let them rise to meet your wholeness. A goddess does not whisper to be accepted. She speaks from her fullness, even when the room isn't ready. The tree in the wrong container. Picture a grand tree planted in a flower pot. At first, it grows, but as the roots expand, the pot constricts. The tree starts bending inward, cracking its own structure just to fit. The branches twist, the growth slows, the life force fades. But the pot remains intact until one day the tree decides to break it, not out of rebellion, but out of reverence for its own becoming. You are that tree, and your soul has outgrown the container of politeness. Vibrational practice, taking up space without guilt. Stand tall, feet shoulder-width apart, arms raised high above your head, like a tree breaking free. Now say aloud, I was not made to fit. I was made to flourish. I do not apologize for occupying space. Repeat this every day until your body no longer cringes at your expansion, until your nervous system remembers visibility is not a threat, it is a birthright. Performing peace, the mask of the spiritually polite woman. She meditates, she journals, she says it's all love, even when something inside her feels like it's dying quietly. To the outside world, she is grace incarnate, so calm, so wise, so light. But inside, she's holding her breath. She's shrinking her fire. She's pretending to be at peace because rage would make her less spiritual, because tears would ruin the image. She's performing peace, and the cost of that performance is authenticity. The hidden pain when being high vibe means censoring your soul. She's been taught that intensity is imbalance, that boundaries are unloving, that showing emotion is low frequency. So she softens her voice, sugarcoats her no, and tells herself that suffering is a lesson. But here's the truth. You're not here to seem evolved. You're here to be real, even when it's messy, even when it's loud, even when it disrupts the spiritual status quo. Because a goddess doesn't pretend calm to keep her crown. She speaks the chaos when it serves truth. Fragmented identity, the violence of vibrational dissonance. There's a name for this inner split. It's called vibrational dissonance. It happens when your words say, I'm fine, but your body pulses, I'm breaking. You nod in conversations you disagree with. You laugh when you want to cry. You host the circle, hold the light, read the mantras, but leave the space feeling hollow because you weren't there, not the real you, just the spiritual avatar, the one that always smiles. And the longer you perform that version, the harder it becomes to remember the original. Spiritual disruption. You're not ascending if you're disappearing. Let's be clear, you can't evolve by erasing yourself. Real evolution isn't aesthetic, it's integrity. It's knowing when your silence is sacred and when it's suppression. It's feeling rage and not labeling it negative. It's crying in meditation and knowing that's holy too. As Louise Hay once wrote, you've been criticizing yourself for years and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens. Approving of yourself includes your fire, your sorrow, your messy middle, because peace that's painted over pain is just another prison. The gilded temple with no air. Imagine a temple. Marble floors, golden statues, flowers laid in perfect symmetry. To the eye, it's serene. To the soul, it's suffocating. Because no windows open, no air moves, no one breathes. That is the energy of spiritual perfectionism.
beautiful on the outside, lifeless within. You were not born to be a temple that impresses. You were born to be a temple that lives.
Self-inquiry practice. Is this peace real, or is it fear? The next time you feel at peace, ask yourself, is this truth, or is this avoidance dressed in light? Close your eyes, feel your breath. Where is the tension? Where is the holding? If the peace feels like suppression, it's not peace, it's performance. Whisper softly, I release the need to seem evolved. I choose to feel what is. Because no amount of calm is worth the cost of your wholeness. The trauma of over-adapting, becoming who you're expected to be. She didn't lie, she adapted. She became the quiet one in her family, the understanding partner, the flexible friend, the spiritual one who never says no, the one who listens but doesn't ask to be heard. She didn't lose herself all at once. She gave pieces away, one permission at a time. And now, years later, she looks in the mirror and asks, who am I when no one's watching? Who would I be if no one needed me to be anything? Psychological root, identity trauma, and emotional mimeticism. Researchers in trauma psychology call this mimetic adaptation a coping response born in chaotic or rejecting environments. When survival depends on being accepted, you become a chameleon. You study faces, you read tones, you shapeshift into what the moment demands. It's not manipulation, it's survival. But over time, the mimicry becomes identity, and the real you, she doesn't vanish, she waits, in silence, in longing, in grief. Because the greatest betrayal is not what others did to you, it's what you had to do to yourself to be loved. Constant adaptation is silent abandonment. Every time you become smaller to fit, every time you silence your truth to belong, every time you say yes to avoid tension, you're not being kind, you're being absent. Absent from your own life, absent from your own soul. The goddess does not contort herself for acceptance. She remembers who she is and lets others adjust. The woman in borrowed clothes. She wore the clothes they handed her, dresses of approval, shoes of performance, scarves of silence. At first, they felt safe. Then they felt tight. Eventually, she forgot what her skin felt like. One day, standing barefoot before her reflection, she whispered, "These were never mine." And that's how she returned, not with noise, but with naked truth. Practice, the return to wild self. Sit with yourself in stillness. Let no one's voice be louder than your own. Then, write these 3 questions. What would I say if I didn't fear judgment? What choice would I make if no one needed to agree? What part of me is tired of pretending? Write, cry, rage. Let it come. Then whisper, today I release the roles. Today I reclaim my real. Say no without a power explanation. She says no and feels the burn to soften it. It's not personal. I wish I could, but I'm just so busy. Because she was taught that declining is rude, that having needs is selfish, that taking space requires negotiation. But here's the unspoken truth. Every extra explanation is a bargain for worth. Every softened no is an apology for existing. Childhood wound, the punished no. Many women grew up in homes where no was punished. No meant rejection. No meant emotional withdrawal. No meant, you don't love me. So now, even as adults, they over-explain, over-justify, over-function. Not because they owe anyone, but because they still carry the fear of being unloved. And yet, the goddess does not explain her temple. She simply closes the doors. The sacred temple that closes without warning. Sometimes the sacred temple is open. Sometimes it is not. It doesn't explain. It doesn't apologize. It simply becomes still and is no less divine for doing so. You are that temple, and your no
spoken with peace and presence, is a bell of reverence, not rejection. Ritual the sovereign no. Today, practice saying no without a story. No, thank you. I'm not available for that. That doesn't feel right for me. If guilt arises, breathe. Place your hand on your heart and repeat internally. I don't need to be understood to be valid. I don't need to explain to be sovereign. My protection is sacred. Then pause. Let the silence hold you. Let your no echo with divinity. Wisdom doesn't shout. It whispers the moment you get quiet enough to hear it. So tell me below, what truth has your soul been whispering all this time that you're finally ready to speak?